no software is safe. Every software has a degree of failure. When I say people, maybe governments have tokens to burn, the hardware to go figure out, solve for the prime numbers to break encryption, right? I expected that tokens would become more expensive or the governments would step in. Can I create something which is predictable? Can I build something which will just help me enumerate, highlight, hey, this is what you have built, this is the configuration. And because of this configuration choice, these are security issues that are possible. Because if I can extract the logic, then I don't really need to do anything else. I can just like open the key and walk in to the app or the product.
Hey folks, welcome to the Vibe podcast again. We have Akash of Kloudle with us, and he's been building security services and products for a long time now. And with AI, he's been building some amazing things more recently. And I think what's been interesting for me to watch when I see Akash's posts on our internal social channel with the Upekkha community or on his LinkedIn posts and Twitter is how fast he's been changing how he's been doing things and how he's trying to get his judgment as a security expert into the product and the things he does and how that shapes his product, and then that shapes his thinking and their offering, and all of that stuff is super interesting to watch. I don't know whether Akash is in AI psychosis or not. So that's an open question. I don't know what the diagnostic criteria for that is, but we'll get into that as well. Right.
Cool.
So Akash,
thanks, Prasanna.
What are you building most recently?
I'm actually building a lot of deterministic tools for the new infrastructure that is getting built, right? And when I say deterministic tools, absolutely using AI code gen to build the tools, but leaving the LLM and the intelligence for analysis, and using a lot of deep research capabilities that we have with Gemini and others to figure out what is state of art and what is the bits that I can build deterministically, and then go from there, solving the hard parts and then weaving them together rather than trying to make like full bets, is how I would put it.
So if I take a step back, right? So my thoughts is here, no software is safe. What do you say to that?
Actually, that's how that's been true forever. It's in mainstream consciousness now, and the only difference is, think of this way, okay? We do a very weird example. Have you ever done paintball? Ever played paintball, right? So when you go for paintball, they make sure that you cover your eyes properly and maybe hands and whatever, because that pellet can hurt, right? So they do that. But imagine 20, 30 years ago, that kind of protection was only available to the military or something, right? And maybe that's how they used to practice, and it eventually became like a team building thing that companies end up doing. Software is at that stage now, right? So maybe there is like a type of space suit that astronomers wear today, which protects them from like, the elements out in space. But the way software is heading, common people will have access to it at some point, right? And just like clothes get created or manufactured or tailored or all that, like that, software is going in that direction. And when that happens, no software is safe. Every software has a degree of failure. I think the primary thing that people look at is like at what boiling point will it burn, right? That's one of the criteria when you look at secure or safe clothing. And that's how software is, right? So if people have, when I say people, maybe governments have tokens to burn, the hardware to go figure out, Earlier also you could solve for the prime numbers to break encryption, right? And the military across the world, nations have had access to it. But now more people have access to it. More people can build tools which will allow them to do that, which was difficult earlier, right? Because to create the tools, you need the org, you need the teams, and that's not really a limitation anymore.
Got it. So, if I paraphrase what you're saying, um, when we look at advanced capabilities for building software, we now those were not available with the general public or you know normal folks who are building software. Now we have those advanced capabilities, and they can be used for both for defense and offense.
Yeah.
But they were always, whatever vulnerabilities were there, they were always there.
Absolutely. It's like another good example in the last 20 odd years, because of the internet, any small team could be a global media org, right? Which was just not possible 20 odd 30 years ago because distribution didn't exist. But post distribution, when anyone could have a website, you also needed like, what does it take to run a newsroom? How do you collect sources and the data management and the content management? And now we've had in the last decade or so, so many really small, or when I say small, I mean small teams doing podcasts and others becoming like being sold to larger companies. It's the same evolution as far as I'm concerned, right? And earlier it was for a specific value prop using software, and now it's for software building, which means that anyone can, with imagination, can build the tool for whatever domain they are part of.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I actually distinctly remember it was 2nd of Jan. And with many things in the last 5 years, it was some post that Rajan had made. And it was the end of December, so I didn't really look at the post on LinkedIn. It's just, I think he must have reshared in our WhatsApp. And I read it, and he had been talking about people need to use Cloud Code. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's use Cloud Code. I was using it for some basic Markdown or Excel analysis before that. And that was the day I typed this in Cloud Code that, hey, how do I make a web app using, and I started giving it some tech stack. Because of my experience and background in software, the prompt was a bit more detailed than most people would put in. And in the next 2-3 hours, I had a working app with a database, right? So then it was like very clear that the possibilities just opened up. So for the first, I think, month and till end of Feb, I was just like, we have a token max. Because I expected that tokens would become more expensive or the governments would step in. And thankfully, it took 6 months for them to get to that.
Okay, so
there are some fundamental cybersecurity problems that have existed, and they exist because of the abstract nature of what they solve. For example, authentication, right? If you just think in terms of very basic authentication, what we came from is a username password, which was 2 bits of columns in a database, to now how we rely on a third party to give the trust or delegate the trust to the website we're logging in. We call it single sign-on. So like a Google login, right? And this all comes from something called OpenAuth, which was a spec, and then people started building. I knew for a fact that many folks who build with OpenAuth, and OpenAuth has many ways of building things, they don't understand a bunch of things, right? They're able to get a working application, but the choices they have made, they don't really know. So can I build something which will just help me enumerate or highlight, hey, this is what you have built, this is the configuration, and because of this configuration choice, these are security issues that are possible. To do that, I had to basically start by saying that where is that logic existing? That logic typically nowadays exists in JavaScript files, which get bundled in one place because we use frameworks, and they become part of a website or a web app, right? So the first thing I built was, can I collect all these JavaScript files, whether they are behind Cloudflare, whether I can reach them directly, and if they're bundled, can I unbundle them? Can I make sense of them being minified and extract this authentication logic? Because if I can extract the logic, then I don't really need to do anything else. I can just like open the key and walk in to the app or the product. That's the first thing I built. I'm still building it. It's far better now, in far better shape now. It can do a lot of things. So yeah, that's the first thing I built.
Got it. That's for work though. I think your AI psychosis in the early days led you far and wide, right? Like, you were doing a lot of things.
Yeah, I think the fun thing I built was alphabet app for my son to learn Kannada.
Okay.
And that was because you can say psychosis. It was just like that Codex decided that if you use the desktop app, they were giving 2x tokens. So I was like, how do I, use up that quota? And I built that. And there are a bunch of things I built which I don't even remember now, but a lot of them were related to bypassing controls. Like I remember someone built a DRM ebook reader online. And again, because it was a web app and there's JavaScript involved, and I just wanted to see if my product would bypass it. So things like that.
Got it. So a lot of experiments that you did on hacking and trying to get into things and bypassing things and stuff like that.
Bypassing less, but more like, hey, can I create something which is predictable? Because that's the fundamental problem that everyone's trying to solve, right? That the prompt works once and it may or may not work the next time. So when it is working, what can I get out of it? The intelligence at hand, the unlimited knowledge it has, and create predictable tools out of that, right? So yeah. So how do I, if I'm using a laptop or a server for running my Claude code, how do I make sure it is patched or I'm not downloading some NPM or Python backdoor? So tooling for that rather than relying on trying to find the right tool and then fit into my workflow. I was like, let's build that exact specific thing, which is custom fit for me, which is what you do when everything can be built.
Got it. So life before Jan 2nd or before Claude Code, life after Claude Code or Codex, whatever, right? What's the key difference?
Before Claude Code, there were many ideas, but there were ideas in buckets like, if I ever end up going to work for someone and I have a team at hand and a budget, I will go build this. And then there were ideas that, I can build it, but I don't know who will buy it. And there were some ideas which are not my favorite, but, these are easy to sell. So it was about, fundamentally, life is about that. And the moment this unlock happened that I can build it and I don't really need to wait for someone, it means that the ideas that I'm working on are the ones that I always thought I should build if I have enough money and people. But once you go on that track, you're like, why limit yourself to this basic thing, right? Whatever I'm going to build has to be state of art. At least in the English speaking world, because that's what the deep research is limited to. My tool needs to be the most superior tool, and it has to be the fastest tool. And I changed the languages, right? I used to write a lot of Python before that. And now that someone else was writing for me, I just started writing in Rust, which is this compiled language, and it's just way faster. And it's very, very exact about data structure. So less surprises once it is built and running.
Interesting. So that's a very good point to segue into.
Fundamentally, I am building so here, I'm coming back to the clothes example, right? There are tailors who can build clothes, but the volume is low. Their TAM is maybe the locality they're part of. There are designers who make like maybe really expensive things for weddings and stuff, bespoke, right? So the value, the quantity of clothes is less, but the value is high. There are people who just do normal tailoring. And then there are these factories, which make they could be like serving multiple brands, right? And these factories, if they don't operate for a day or a shift, there's clear value loss. We can quantify it in dollars. So the bet I made is that software, the way it is right now, it's for the internet we are building because that's where software runs for the digital world. Will allow for other areas to open up, whether it's bio engineering or space exploration or variety of ways where like internet will meet physical this thing, which means that companies have to build a lot of software, even if X percentage, maybe 90% of the software they build is not really useful a few years down the line. But while at the stage they're at, they need a custom fit software which works for them, which means that their operations are about running a software factory, right? And if someone is building and running a software factory, it requires a bunch of things. There is a model that we mostly rent at this point, or if we can afford GPUs, we can self-host. But mostly we rent, right, from the frontier labs. Then there's the harness, there's the memory, there is the context, and everything else around, the workflow around it, right? So this software factory needs to be protected. When software can be just thrown away, nobody has time to review. Trying to do traditional security controls is pointless, right? The same way when Kubernetes and microservices and Docker really came into existence. Before that, even on your machine, if you have to do development, you have to be very careful that you don't corrupt the libraries, the system libraries, because your system should not become, unusable. Then we had a Docker and a bunch of other things like that. And we're like, yeah, if the Docker doesn't work, we'll just trash it and start again, right? We got into that mode, more experimentation and more success and then more automation. So now I believe the infra, the access, the software, the thing that it does, the workflow, the harness, all of it will run in the factory. And this factory has to be protected as a whole. You can't just say my application security gateway will take care of the app, but I can't really be bothered with the cloud, right? I can't be bothered about the prompt injection, right? So the thing that I'm building is how do you create a security posture management for AI software factory, right? But the taste here, the choice that I've made is that it has to be self-hosted, because everyone now realizes that once you automate everything, what remains is to become more efficient at automation and go to whatever is the next hill, right? So people are talking about loop engineering and hill climbing and all that. But for you to be able to do that, you have to be able to retain that context. All the failures, all the metrics, all the performance numbers, and they should be under your control as opposed to all of it just going to the frontier lab. Otherwise, what will happen is what happened, with AWS. For a decade, AWS just won because they could clearly see what people are doing with the cloud workloads. And whatever was successful, they would just launch a service in that, right? That with that metadata and that intelligence. So that's what I'm building.
Got it. So that's interesting, right? Because if I have to unpack what you're saying, hey, there are companies which are going to become, in a sense, software factories, and that's how they deliver value. They create more and more software of different kinds. Maybe some of it is one-off usage, some of it is going to be reused a lot, some of it is going to become a product which is used extensively a lot. And to secure all these different kinds of software, it's going to require kind of a defense in depth, because it's all being built by AI. So you don't know which part is going to do what, how it's, what kind of reuse is there versus not, where the vulnerabilities might be there in the software that's being produced. And therefore, a new kind of security is going to be required for these pieces of software when they are running.
Yeah, I'm saying a little different. I'm just saying that think of like a car factory, right? You have a car, there's a car manufacturing facility. You can get your car fixed by a mechanic who's not part of the official distribution, whatever. You can go to the official service station, but let's say enough number of cars have the same fault and a recall happens. That is only actionable if the factory can be retrofitted to fix that fault, right? So I'm trying to say is that even if you are like, let's say, a company which is going to build robots for home use, right? You still need customers, so you definitely need a CRM. Now, whatever that CRM is a HubSpot or a Salesforce or something else you bespoke, is immaterial, right? But let's say now you realize that you can't do bespoke CRM because you're hiring enough people who need to be Salesforce experts, which means now you go back to recovering or removing some modules from the bespoke part and making it compatible with a Salesforce way of doing things, right? All of this will need a place. What is this place? Is a software factory. Whether it happens in developer laptops, whether it happens in like servers where agents are always running and there's a human orchestrating multiple agents, is all the same, right? Because the company needs like a shared brain or a shared context, right? I'm just saying there are people who will do defense in depth, who will say that this cloud is running, I will protect your cloud. They could do those one-off things. There are companies who will say that I will protect your supply chain when it's running in your developer's machine. There are companies who will say I will, when your application is running, I'll provide you a web application firewall. They will exist, but over time, people will just prefer to fix faults en masse by taking it back to their software factory and doing another release, right? So that is where the real value will get captured. So how do you do that? There are only 4 or 5 moving parts to a software factory, and trying to build, like a ledger of security issues, of saying that, hey, this is a problem, but by itself, not really a problem in a software factory. And using that ledger for promoting security issues to things that need to be solved, or things that can be ignored, or a human overview is looked at, right? Because in the future, that is how I believe a lot of software will get written in this thing. And this is no different from how, let's say, if you ask Claude Code today, hey, tell me from Upekkha website, does this string exist? It can either go use a tool like a bash to curl or wget, or it says that, hey, Prasanna's prompt is so specific, I am best served if I write some Python, right? It writes that Python. You never save that script because you don't care. You get the outcome and you throw away that script. But this is what I'm trying to describe. That software will be written, thrown away, outcomes will be saved. But the operational running of that is what will become super valuable. I don't know, maybe it's too abstract, maybe, but yeah, that's how I'm thinking about things.
Got it. Okay. So I'm just trying to think of the metaphor.
So think of like, in the factory side, there is the workers who work, right? But what are they working with? They're working with some machines, right? Let's say your machines are your models and the harness, because machines have a certain standard way of input and output, and then they do their thing, right? But where does the input come from? Maybe it's some raw material. Raw material has to come from outside the factory, which is like maybe it comes in a truck or a train or something. Now these become your interfaces. API, MCP, CLI, it's all the same, right? Because these inputs come from somewhere. The machines will do the work. Something will get done. And if the worker is rogue, a machine can stop or bad output can happen. But do you have the feedback loop to kind of quickly identify and rectify or something, right? Or contain it. When the output has to go out, now you have like spent the money, the electricity, the effort. Now this output has some value. It may not be the final value because it still needs to get packed or whatever. Yeah, processed or sold in a certain way. But this specific thing has value because you have spent money on it. This needs to be protected, right? All the factory premises in the physical world, when the truck has entered your premises to everything else, is like the infrastructure that needs to be secured, right? If there are gates and windows, are they secured? Or are they secured at the end of the day when nobody else is allowed to walk in or not, which is a policy, right? So it's actually meant to be like how any decent sized factory would work, where there are multiple people who you can't trust, but because of their identity, you allow them access. Because of the time and the policy, you are like, now go home and come back tomorrow, things like that, right? And you also worry about fire and other disasters.
So, I'm just like trying to stay in the factory metaphor and understand it, because factories went through this kind of an automation. So, just trying to understand where that is. So, when we look at like earlier vertically integrated kind of a thing, right, where each step they'll be doing everything. There'll be somebody who's like expert at each thing. Therefore, they'll be looking at the quality of it, and they'll be like figuring out what's happening, and they will know at each step, right? I think versus when we look at a more modern factory, a lot of the things that you first of all, you're assembling many more things. It's not just what you have, but you're assembling like many more things. And therefore the quality of each of those things becomes variable, and then each of those things can have its own defects. Therefore the complexity has exploded in terms of just procurement and getting the right part, getting the right tolerances, getting the right quality, all of that stuff. And then putting together becomes a challenge in itself. But then if there's a failure in some part which I didn't make, but I'm assembling, then it affects my customers and downstream and all of those kind of things, right? So I think that's where like my head is going, and then in that process, I guess a lot of people, quality departments had to be set up, because now I'm not only dealing with the quality of my work output, which I can see easily, and I know how it's going, so I figured out how to do that. But I have to figure out, okay, somebody sent me raw material, I have to check for that quality, or I have to like be getting that quality. How do I know what quality that is, right? And then like dealing with the impact of quality of a particular component that I use, and so on and so forth. So to me, that is the kind of shift that is happening. And then you are looking at, hey, if we are doing that process, then how are we getting how do we know what is the quality of what we are delivering? And when, of course, you cannot always deliver at 100% quality that you would like, because there are different pressures in terms of delivery or all of those kind of things. And on the other side, we have, when stuff happens, how are we dealing with it? Right? So is that like mapping to what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm actually going to say this is already a solved problem. This is called incident response in security, right? And a lot of what we do in cybersecurity, right, it came from the Cold War times, how information had to be protected. It didn't really matter if it was on tapes or physical files, but the information assurance departments of US and USSR then, the way they created how things had to happen, they always had to start with that it will get compromised, right? So the same thing with how fire safety happens. That can I put the pipes today while the building is not occupied, so that when the fire engine comes, they are able to plug into the pipe and whatever, right? So the software supply chain issues that we have recently seen, and if you use Codex, CLI or the GUI, you would have definitely received email saying that you have to update your Codex. What happened? The suspicion is that one of the malwares had infected the OpenAI team, which manages the certificates which are used to sign that software, right? So even that possibility was already part of that, right? And this is where I'm trying to say, like, pre-Claude Code, or the way I build software today, I had a distributed team in India, right? Bunch of engineers. There is no way I could do the same level of incident response if one of the engineers and their laptops had been hacked. Whether the hack is like intentional or they downloaded something or whatever, is all the same, right? You can't really differentiate at that time. The policy is the same. So you have to revoke their access, take away their Git access and all of that, right? But when agents are going to do things, which is how many people who are token maxing or able to produce a lot of output are already operating, whether by running locally hosted machines or on servers, it's all the same. When you do that centralization, The centralization is not of compute, but it is of the orchestration. So Prasanna could be running bunch of workloads on his personal laptop and also some on the server. Whether you're using managed agents or whatever, it's all the same. Your secrets are your secrets. If you have thought of that, what happens if the attacker comes for my main laptop, right? Or that gets infected because of a software supply chain, right? It's the same concept, and you're also running a factory. What is actually happening is a lot of people don't realize that they're running a factory because it may not be running all the time, or they're just thinking I'm producing software, right? But all the third-party libraries that you're using without even knowing you're using. Now, when you build an app, the SSL is taken care of. All you like, hey, here is my server, point to it and Vercel link or whatever it is, with an SSL and everything. But there is an actual organization, right? Let's encrypt, and then there is another one, which is physically or on the machine generating a SSL TLS certificate. It used to be valid for 1 year. A few years ago, that came down to 90 days. And I think now the new change board for certification is like it has to come down to 7 days. For finance and all, it may come down to even 30 minutes.
Oh my God. So that's like almost, it's no longer like what it used to be, right? It's pretty much a instant signature. It's more like the browser login kind of a thing where it's
exactly right. It's a length of the normal session, right? But this 30 minutes is only possible because they reduced it from 365 days to 90 days. That automation taught them some new things. That if I have to revoke and reissue in a shorter duration, what else can go wrong, right? This collection of failure modes. And I'm telling you, whether it's me, you, or anyone else who's been building stuff for the past few months, you already have your favorite list of failure modes that happened to you. Like, we could not meet yesterday because no matter what I say about my factory, internet said, bye, I'm gone. So I'm cut off from my factory, right? So I'm just saying that incident response is going to take care of that, right? Now, someone could be just building software for fun in their own laptop and maybe even hand coding it, right? Maybe there are people who woodwork and create, artisanal, they create furniture. So there's no value in that. The value for them is that craft itself. But for vast majority of people who want to do the work and then go do something else, spend time with family or go watch a FIFA World Cup match, for all of them, they are going to and have already become part of software factories, right? To protect a software factory, you have to look at what the infra is, whether it's the regular hyperscaler cloud, it's the neo cloud, or developer laptops. You have to look at what the interface is. Is it MCP? It is API. It is your OAuth. It is your something else that will come soon. We don't know. And when these two are taken care of, what remains is that while I'm finding security issues, I have to regularly do a policy of finding security issues. I can't be looking at all the security issues. It wasn't possible earlier, but now the debt will be insane. So there has to be a way where I'm learning from my past security issues, and at least a percentage of them should not repeat, right? What you said, quality teams or minimal acceptable this thing, right? And this particular loop we will rediscover every single time. We are purely digital, we will discover it and maybe we'll become really good at it. When we are like digital plus human in bioengineering sense, maybe there is something else. We start putting data centers in space, in oceans. How the natural things impact RAM or transfer of data might require new failure modes discovery and newer ways to protect, right? But because we are in a factory system, we will know that it's modular. This part has broken down, this has failed, and this is acceptable to us. And that catastrophic failure that sometimes happens, right? That tsunami happens, and then the water, nuclear power plant is going to take away the protections of that, right? That is rare, right? It can still happen, but that's the world I'm building for. But it's fun and exciting. It's a new world.
Brave new world. Okay, interesting. So, how you're building has changed, what you're building has changed, what you're building for has changed, right? And I think like you're reasonably far further ahead than most folks are in terms of both how much you're using AI for what you're using AI, and what you're getting out of it, right? Now, what's your philosophy in terms of how you're using AI today? Where do you use AI? Where do you use something more deterministic? Where do you make sure that you're applying your judgment? What do you let go of? What do you keep? Any like thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I basically use 100% AI at the beginning of anything, right? So when I do deep research, it's not the prompt that I have written. If I think of or if I come across a new keyword which I am not familiar with, I will start with maybe a Google AI search that, hey, what is this keyword? Then I will, if it's like a technical thing, then Claude does a really good job for me, Claude Web. I will go ask it, hey, do atoms of thought and help me understand all the things around this, right? And I don't care how deeply you think. Give me 3 bullet points on what this is, what can I do with it, and whatever, maybe what the future looks like or something like that, right? And if I'm happy with the answer, it's worth pursuing at that point, then I will tell Claude, okay, give me a prompt to do deep research for ChatGPT Extra High or a Gemini Ultra, and I plan to come back to you to collate it, right? So what I'm saying is, at the beginning, I go wide, and it's all AI, right? Now, let's say to the other end, when I recently realized that once a lot more people use OAuth, a lot more applications will have multiple roles. The reason a lot of people used to build single tenant apps and simple user apps are because multi-role and all that is complicated and there's more testing involved. So it's an immediate bet and it's working out in the other business, AppSeco. A lot more products that I'm seeing now are multi-role, right? So I built a authorization checker tool. Authorization checks are complicated by themselves because if everything I do right, but the app itself has a fundamental flaw, not a security flaw, but like a coding flaw, my check can still fail, right? There, I don't want any kind of AI. The only AI I want is like if I generate some evidence or generate a bunch of findings in a structured format, maybe then I can ask the AI, can you summarize this for me, right? So, but to build it, like what are the 4 different ways of OAuth? Oh, agent identity is coming up with an agent authentication. There are 3 protocols or specs. They're all for agent authentication, right? Okay. And they're all called AOTs, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the wide deep research gave me that. Those are the various milestones. Let's just say pieces of interests, right? And then I have picked and choose this where judgment is that, okay, I don't think this is going anywhere. The person who has written this doesn't really have the credibility in this space. So even if they are potentially a Nobel Prize winning scientist, nobody's going to pay attention to them, right? Because that's what really happens. We are a marketing driven world, a brand driven world. So bring it down to, okay, for this particular spec, I want to solve. Right? And then the final code is so deterministic, it's purely Rust in the sense that, now it can do that. The only AI I would use here and what I've used is before I realized I was building for the software factory was that I always wanted findings which they cross a certain threshold become a security issue. I never wanted everything to be a security issue because it doesn't make sense. The world is so complicated, right? Things can go wrong at all places. The second thing is I always wanted run notes. When the agent is running, whatever it touches, whatever it chooses, whatever it decides, whatever file it thinks of, whatever tool it has to take notes in a JSON-L format, which is a very highly compressible format. And I've been keeping that since Jan, when I started building this, simply because now that I have like almost a few GB of run notes, I can unleash another AI, be like, go find me a pattern that I don't really understand here. go find me insights that I don't know. And that in one of those sessions, let's just call it a retrospective, is when I realized that, okay, I've built like 6 different tools and they're all like promoting findings to security issues. They are all maintaining ledgers, fairly similar in the structure. And if I just formalize that structure, what I have is across cloud, app, MCP, auth control, right? And the JS that the app and auth type things have, one way to say that I can promote or evaluate findings, right? And so I use AI for that post activity also. I actually have a QMD, which is this tool for like, it's like a RAG tool for markdowns, right? So I wrote a small tool which whenever once a week, all my Claude and Codex sessions get summarized into markdowns and then they get added to that, right? Because I'm not a very original thinker. So invariably it's like, oh, I've had this thought before, but I didn't really pursue it then, right? So the idea is to capture it like that and go from there. But otherwise, creatively building websites or what to say to people, how to write a email where the customer says, I can't pay you this much, and verify if it's professional, it's polite. I use it all the time, extensively, right? I haven't written a Word doc or a Google doc by hand in like since Jan, because it's all like done for me now. Because yeah, that's how I think about it.
What are the latest 2 or 3 tools that you really found useful, or 2 or 3 techniques what that have changed how you do this stuff in the last few weeks?
Yeah, so I think 6 weeks ago, what happened was Claude had a massive quantization event, right, where the output just became terrible. It was always something that overclaimed. It's been like that, an overeager agent. But I think before Fable launched, they just like really made a mess of it. So I started using Codex to audit whatever Claude would do. And at some point, I just started using Codex to kind of write the prompt for Claude. And for almost 10 days, I was copy pasting in one terminal, what Codex is saying to Claude and then vice versa. At some point, I was, this is stupid. There has to be a better way. So then I created myself what I now call a solo founder software factory, where using terminals and this tool called Tmux, my harness starts, it initiates a codex. It already has like what I want to do at a high level. So it always starts from that, doesn't start from scratch. And then it can choose whether it wants to kick off a Claude code. And I use Claude code like in the terminal, logged in the way their license allows it, not with the non-interactive way. Or I PyDev with GLM, which is the newest thing that I have started using. And PyDev with DeepSeek or Gemini Flash for DevOps, because that is the most fantastic tool ever, right? So this harness is how I am building things now. And the way I've built this harness is that even for older projects where there was no harness, now on my machine, on my laptop, I just tell my PyDev that, hey, go to this server, go to this folder and deploy the harness and kick off, right? So I'm at that place now. So that's pretty interesting because I'm experiencing new failure modes, which I would not have if I had not automated this. And understanding how people think about secrets management, right? So I ended up actually reading a lot more. I read through the Codex source code, the Pi source code, that what happens, at what point does the secret from my laptop actually goes to the OpenAI or a Anthropic server, right? Things that I would not have really bothered to read earlier, but interesting for me to think of in for the future.
Which model are you mostly deeply in psychosis with right now?
GPT is 5.5 extra high. Claude doesn't really matter. For a very long time I was using 4.6. Fable came, I used Fable for a couple of days, it was nice. and now I think 4.0 is basically Fable without some things present. I also started using a lot of Quen 3.5, and the most impressive model for me is GLM 5.2. Single shot, without any harness, I got a security scanner done. It took its sweet time. It costed me around $65 in API costs, but the damn thing works. It just does the work to figure out that it's working or not. It created this thing. It figured out I don't have Docker. I don't want Docker. It created the tests. It created the mocks, everything, and crazy impressive. Crazy impressive. So if anyone has 8 H100s and a server and the power, they basically can now rule the world. They don't need Frontier Labs.
Fantastic. So what's exciting that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I think at some point I want to, when my solo founder software factory is like closer to 1.0, I want to launch it. I want to like release it for anyone to use, and building bunch of things in that. And I've also done a lot of work on MCP pen testing agent, which I presented at a conference a couple of weeks back. So I want to launch it wide soon. So looking forward to that. It's mostly cybersecurity. It's not something else.
All right. So that's about it for this podcast, folks. Thanks a lot, Akash, for coming in and sharing your journey over the last few months and how you've been rethinking where security fits in the B2B context, how more folks will be building software factories and how those factories will need security of a different kind than in the past, and how that has to be local, that has to be under control, so that you can learn from it and you can get better with it and stuff like that. Fabulous conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Prasanna. Take care. Bye.